Good afternoon. Last Thursday's and Friday's attacks on coalition bases, I think, were a reminder of the dangers that we face in the world, and particularly in that region from Iranian-backed militias and terrorists. And it was unacceptable that the administration didn't notify congressional leaders, Congress in general, literally for 12 hours after that happened. There was no notification made, and that is totally unacceptable. I will say that given the debate that we're having on the floor right now with respect to the authorizations for the use of military force, that what happened last weekend should bear on that. I think everybody needs to remember that we need to keep all the tools at our disposal when it comes to combating terrorism around the world. The House this week is going to take up energy legislation. It's something that we think is a big priority. We view energy security to be synonymous with national security. And while the Senate is unlikely to take up whatever the House ends up ultimately passing, we believe that it's an issue that should be debated in the United States Senate, which is why we continue to raise a lot of these issues through the use of Congressional Review Act resolutions of disapproval. And we'll have the opportunity this next week to vote on, or this week I should say, on a couple of those. And Senator Capito is going to talk about her Waters of the United States resolution of disapproval. It's a huge federal land grab, which, by the way, in the state of South Dakota would bring 86% of South Dakota's land under federal jurisdiction. So I hope we get a big vote for her CRA, and there will be some other ones queued up after that in the coming weeks. But we're going to continue to emphasize and focus on, the Republicans are here in Congress, on the importance of energy and the need to make sure that America is taking care of our energy requirements and working with our allies to come up with an all-of-the-above energy plan that keeps America energy independent, keeps prices affordable for American people, and ensures that we don't have to depend upon dangerous parts of the world for our energy. It is a national security issue, and we're going to continue to talk about it.
Well, Joe Biden has surrendered to climate hysteria. And in surrendering, he has hurt the American people in terms of their finances as well as their freedom. This is a betrayal of the American people. The president irresponsibly has attacked American energy, and that's driven up costs for families. He has irresponsibly attacked American energy, and that has undermined our own national security. Now, the president talks about a commitment to green the grid. He does this while blindly ignoring the cost as well as the consequences of making energy more expensive and us more dependent upon others. This is a major mistake by the president and the administration. A president who cared about the American people would be looking for ways to produce more affordable, reliable American energy. But Joe Biden doesn't care about that. That's why energy prices are up close to 40% since the day he took office. People are hurting and people are angry. So the House of Representatives, this week, the Republicans in the House are bringing energy legislation to lower the cost of energy. A big part of that is focused on permitting, and that's something Democrats have claimed in the past to be for, to do permitting reform. Senator Capito and I, as ranking members of the EPW Committee and the Energy Committee, are focused on getting that done. What we're looking at ways to put time limits on bureaucratic foot dragging that slows down projects, and dangerous and damaging and dilatory lawsuits that make it harder to get projects built. That's our focus. We need more American energy, more reliable energy, more affordable energy. Let's face it, our country has incredible energy resources. We have the best workers in the world, and we have American innovation. American innovation. Look, there is no reason that we should not be the leaders of the world when it comes to clean, affordable, and reliable energy.
President Joe Biden is now threatening to veto a piece of legislation which would lower energy costs for Americans. This administration has become so beholden to the far left. All of these Green New Deal climate ideologists and extremists. And what they are so fixated on in this administration is making sure that everybody is driving an electric vehicle. An electric vehicle, folks. Think about it. Where do the batteries for those electric vehicles come from? They come from China. So what the administration is doing is saying we should be more reliant upon China and the batteries that require child and slave labor to produce. Instead of looking inward at the abundant resources that we have domestically, he continues as president to look outward and relying on our adversaries. But what I can say, coming from Iowa, we have a lot of really great resources that are readily available. They're abundant and they are cheaper. What am I talking about? It's biofuels. The administration knows that right now they can tap into biofuels and make it easier as we're approaching the summer driving season. And so I would encourage this administration, provide that E15 waiver. Let's allow E15 to be sold year-round, and let's do it right now, this summer, so that all of those drivers, those families that are going on vacation, if they are driving somewhere, they can pull up to a pump and they can tap into E15, providing cleaner, cheaper solutions.
Well, tomorrow, as Senator Thune said, we're going to be considering another overreach by this administration, a regulatory overreach that impacts thousands, millions of acres and millions of small business people, millions of our farmers, our ranchers, our developers, all across this country. I am leading the effort to repeal the President's Waters of the U.S. rule. This is the rule that talks about navigable waters. It can be a farm pond, it can be an intermittent stream, or it could be the Ohio River. They don't sound the same, do they? No, I don't think you can navigate a farm pond too well. But this administration is reaching in to all of this to overreach with their new regulation of the waters of the U.S. So this impacts, as I said, particularly the American Farm Bureau, the West Virginia Farm Bureau. Charles Wilfong wrote an op-ed basically saying that this is another overreach by the administration. We want to have clean environment. We want to have a commitment every day to do it the right way as farmers. And yet this administration is going to come in. It's going to be costly. It's going to be disruptive. And it's going to put an onus of federal regulation where it has never been before into a lot of our private landowners. So I'm expecting that this will pass the United States Senate with bipartisan support. It's already passed the House. It will go to the President's desk, and we're going to challenge the President again to say, Mr. President, are you going to listen to the heartland of America where your overreach in your regulatory environment on the waters is going to penalize so many people and really make it impossible in a lot of ways? And as a reminder, the Supreme Court is considering, has under consideration a case called the Sackett case, which will be decided in June, where a lot of what's already in this regulation that the administration just put out is going to have to be most certainly redone, undone, and reshaped. So why in the world they went forward? We're going to send a message to the White House. No, this regulation does not fit. It does not help. And as a matter of fact, in a lot of ways it hurts. Just a minute on permitting. H.R. 1, I'm really proud of what the House is doing within that bill is permitting. I believe that we, as a body, Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate, along with the President, can get permitting reform. If we work it through our committees, which we're going to do, John over on energy and I'm over on EPW, work this through our committees because here's the deal. We passed the CHIPS bill. We passed the infrastructure bill. These are all great things. But if you can't permit any of it, you can't build it. You can't mine for a critical mineral right now to put in a chip because you can't permit a mine. So timelines, judicial review, and other parts of the permitting process are incredibly broken. We agree on this. I think as both Republicans and Democrats, it's trying to find that permitting reform. Let's see what the House brings. I think their bill is going to be really good, and I think it's going to be particularly impactful on the permitting legislation.
So this morning, the Senate Banking Committee had a hearing. We had one of the top regulators from the Federal Reserve. We were questioning him about the Silicon Valley Bank failure. Banking is about managing risk. Whether it's making a loan, you're always looking at risk. If you're on the management team of a bank, you're looking at risk, looking at the balance sheet. You're looking at your assets, you're looking at vulnerabilities. Go back to early 2021, when we were debating up here on Capitol Hill whether or not we should pass a massive $1.9 trillion spending bill. Every single Democrat voted for it. Every Republican voted against it. Why? Well, there were a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because it was going to create inflationary pressures on the economy. Lawrence Summers, who was President Clinton's Secretary of Treasury, also one of President Obama's key advisors on the economy, was warning Democrats then about what this would do in terms of igniting inflation in the economy. Sadly, the Democrats didn't listen because Lawrence Summers was right. So what did the Federal Reserve have to do? They started to raise rates to combat this out-of-control inflation. That creates risk. Now, the San Francisco Fed, who's responsible for regulating the Silicon Valley Bank, they were asleep at the wheel. Instead of regulating, they took their eye off the ball and were focused on the green hallucination in pursuing the Democrats' dream. In fact, you go back to October of 22, as rates were starting to go up, to the San Francisco district said, here's what's top of mind for our work in the 12th district, taken right off their website. It says financial risks from climate change. That was the focus of the regulators. Meanwhile, you contrast that to the Richmond Fed over here in the 5th district, the other side of the country. They, at the same time, were saying rising rates and interest rate risk management was the key priority. This was then the perfect storm. Regulators took their eye off the ball. They missed the real risks of rising interest rates, decreasing bond values, liquidity challenges, because they were telling everybody it's all about the risk of climate change.
You have your hand on the pulse of the Republican conference. Senator McConnell is not going to be back at least until the middle of April. Does everyone still have confidence that when he does return, he's going to be able to lead the conference? I mean, there was a leadership challenge to him in November, obviously. Is everyone still thinking that he's going to be up for the job?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Explain why.
We look forward to having him back. He's our leader, and he has the support of the entire Republican conference, and we're glad that he's home, recovering well, in good spirits, paying close attention to what's happening here, and he'll be back here directing the traffic in the near term.
Senator, polls have shown that a vast majority of voters support some changes to gun laws, like universal background checks. Are you concerned that Republicans look out of step with the public by opposing these kind of restrictions?
Well, first of all, and in response to what happened, horrific shooting in Nashville, we all, our thoughts are with the families of the victims, with the community. We are grateful for the quick, rapid response of law enforcement. And I think with respect to any discussion of legislation, it's premature. There's an ongoing investigation, and I think we need to let the facts come out.
But there have been 120 mass shootings just this year alone. Should there be not some restrictions that Congress should have?
Again, I mean, I think we'll when we get the facts in from this current investigation, we'll have a better assessment of that. But I think right now it's just premature to talk about it, and I think there are a lot of grieving, hurting families in Nashville, and we want to support them.
Senator, just I want to get your thoughts on Speaker McCarthy's letter to President Biden. You know, obviously you guys are getting ready to go on a long recess, and so if these talks can't be kick-started by the time you return, at some point will Senate Republicans have to get off the sidelines and get more involved with negotiations?
I think we all support the efforts by House leadership, by Speaker McCarthy and his team, to get the administration back at the table. And I think it's unfortunate that the administration hasn't shown at least much of a willingness to do that. Frankly, I think it's ridiculous. We've got a major, as you point out, incident coming up in the not too distant future. And they're the folks that can sit down and actually negotiate an outcome. And so we are very supportive of what the Speaker's trying to do, and hopefully his letter, which laid out some specific solutions, will get the administration back to the table, and they can have a meaningful conversation about how we deal with the debt limit, and hopefully how we deal at the same time with some spending reforms.
Senator, you started the press conference about the attack on U.S. forces. Is there any risk in Senator Tuberville blocking military promotions to try to get this policy?
Well, I mean, the Senator Tuberville, the issue that he's raising, I agree that the Department of Defense's policy is atrocious, and it is a departure from decades-long understanding of federal public policy when it comes to that issue. And it's his prerogative. Any individual senator can use their powers and their rights as a senator to get the attention of the administration. The administration can move those nominees. All it takes, every nominee now is at 51 votes, and if they choose to, they can move them along, and hopefully they can sit down with Senator Tuberville and address the issue that he's raised, because one, he's very passionate about it, and he's not alone. We have a lot of members in our conference who care deeply about that issue.
Senator,
one last one, yep.
Regarding Speaker McCarthy's letter to the President, Senate Leader Schumer just now said there's not enough detail, that McCarthy still hasn't put enough detail to warrant a negotiation to sit down with the President. Do you think the House Republicans at this point should pass a budget so that they can put more pressure on Democrats to get this negotiation? Well,
I mean, I find it ironic hearing Senate Democrats, whose job it is to pass a budget through the Senate, attacking House Republicans for not passing a budget in the House. I mean, the Senate Democrats, if they wanted to, if they want to put the President's budget on the floor, we'd be more than happy to vote on that. But I think, again, I'll come back to the point I made. The only way we get an outcome here is if the Senate Republican leadership and the President can come to an agreement. And hopefully that would apply not only to the debt limit debate, but also to the debate over the spending bills this year. And we're supportive of those efforts. And I thought the Speaker's letter, frankly, was pretty specific. He laid out 4 very specific policy suggestions that would represent, I think, common ground. And again, I hope the administration will come to the table and will engage in a conversation that could lead to an outcome that would not put us in a crisis with respect to default, and deal with the issue of spending reforms, which is what the House Republicans are trying to get on the table. Thank you.